Adapting for success. So we're going to start with a quote from one of the great philosophers of our time. We're actually going to be looking at some of philosopher quotes during this particular presentation. But I was just wondering if anybody out there could tell me who said this. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. Remember, it's from one of the great philosophers of our time. Let me get back to the Zoom screen here. Go back to the meeting controls here. Is there anybody that knows the answer to that question right there? Who actually said the only thing that stays the same is everything changes? So if anybody wants to take a guess at it, go ahead and raise your hand, and we're going to try something a little bit different today. So the only thing that stays the same is everything changes. So go ahead and use the raise the hand feature. Is there anybody out there that would like to participate? It doesn't matter if it's a wrong answer. I just want to looking for some participation right now. Anybody out there? All right, Lyndon, this is what I'm going to do. Lyndon, I am going to allow you to talk. So we got 3 quotes that we're going to be looking at tonight. 3 quotes. This is the first one. So whenever I allow you to talk, I would like for you to, of course, state your name, state where you're from, and if you're from one of the organizations that we work with at CCO, please tell us that as well. So Lyndon, if you would, just go ahead. Let me go ahead and unmute you there. Lyndon, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hi, Vance.
Lyndon, how you doing?
Great, man.
Well, if you would, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
And I work down here at Rural Communities Initiative Foundation, which is better known as RCIF because of the lengthy name. And we're around the Bellefonte and Nycut area, based there. And we have a new community center that's a year old. We've been in it a year now. And we continue to grow, and we're blessed to be a part of Cherokee Nation. And I love it. And it was at Will Rogers.
It was not.
Okay,
it was not Will Rogers.
I didn't know, but that sounds like old Will.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. It is country. We'll say that. It is country. I tell you what, Lyndon, just for participating here in a little bit, just stay tuned, and you can either text me your address or send me an email with your address and your shirt size, and we'll go through the prize vault. And I'll go ahead and get you something. So that's another thing, you all. Those of you all that want to participate in this little quiz that we got, we only got 3 opportunities here. It's not going to hurt nobody. We're all in it just to have some good fun. It is not Will Rogers. Is there anybody else that would like to take a stab at the only thing that stays the same is everything changes? All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and reveal that. The answer is Tracy Lawrence back in 1996. The song Time Marches On. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. So, yeah, you were, I said it was country, so Will Rogers to me was country. Lyndon, thanks for participating. The answer was Tracy Lawrence. So today we're going to be looking at adapting. Adapting is a word that brings about many, many different connotations. Note that all organizations are different. And actually what works for one organization may not necessarily work for another organization. So when we look at adapting in this particular one, we're actually looking at change in your organization. But there are actually different ways that you could look at adapting, looking at as resilience, readjustment, modification, remodeling, taking what you got and making it a little bit better. And shaping, same thing. Taking what you got and molding it to something that is just a little bit better. But also, sometimes the word adapting brings on some dark connotations as well. But as leaders, we shouldn't really look at it this way. Some of the dark things that we kind of see or think about is uncertainty. Adapting is not easy. It's not easy by any means, but it can still be done, and your organization can do it. Adapting is scary sometimes. It really is. The unknown. The unknown. It's scary. So we got another quiz here. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear is the path to the dark side. So the simple truth is we usually do not like what is unknown, although we may not fear it. It definitely makes us feel uneasy sometimes. So anything that is unknown that we want to venture into can make us feel uneasy. When we know without a doubt that what is going to happen, if we're going into something, prepared, we usually don't have that uneasiness. We usually don't have that fear. But whenever there is an unknown variant to it, sometimes we go into survival mode. We go in and take on to, we get defensive. So go ahead and stop sharing here. Is there anybody that would like to take a stab at this one? Fear is the path to the dark side. And the first ones I saw was Eric and Arnetta. So Eric, Arnetta, if you would go ahead and unmute for me. Hi, how y'all doing?
Hey, Vince, doing well. That was Yoda.
That was Yoda. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, just kind of hang on and, well, you got my number, you got my email. So just both of y'all just send me your t-shirt sizes and we'll go into the vault. We'll go into the vault and we'll send you something here shortly. So that's awesome. Yes. Absolutely. That was Yoda. That's great. So let's go back to the presentation here. Absolutely. Yoda. And he said that long ago in a galaxy far away. Fear is the path to the dark side. Now, in this case, and I don't know too much about Star Wars, without going into much of the world of Yoda, I'm very limited on Star Wars, but I did watch all the Star Wars movies. It's just not my thing. I did watch them, and I think they were cool. But in this case, the dark side that Yoda was talking about is pretty bad. It's negative. Fear is the path to the dark side. But for the purpose of this particular presentation, let me turn this over on its head. I would like to enter this right here. Come to the dark side. Come to the dark side. So think about this. This is one of my favorite things that I learned in grade school, which was a long time ago. And I always wanted to find a way to incorporate this story into something that I do. And lo and behold, today was the day. So those watching live and those watching later on YouTube to get your hours needed for the grants your organization applied for and received from us, come to the dark side. I urge you to come to the dark side. So this is a part of history, actually. So picture a time during the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s. Scenes like this picture right here, the factories, they were not hard to find. In the United States and even England, where this story takes place, you could find sprawling manufacturing cities that were often powered with coal. Coal was one of the main sources of fuel at this time. And burning coal, if you've never been around coal, coal is dirty. Coal is dirty. It burns really dirty. As you can see all this smoke in this picture, But enough of it. The oily soot that will begin to build up. It'll begin to build up if there's enough of it, and it'll begin to cover everything. So the areas where this was around, you can tell the houses were all, just covered in soot. People often that worked in here, worked in this atmosphere, people that just lived often covered in soot. And even the trees were covered in soot. This right here is a peppered moth. Today they can be found in England and Europe and even here in North America. They're real small. Okay, take into consideration England, where this happened. During its industrial revolution days, the days of the thick, black, oily soot from the coal, this white color moth made it easier to see when they landed on trees. They were easy prey then for local birds because of the contrast of their color. So if this particular moth landed on a really dark, oily, soot-covered tree, a bird can come over there and just find it and eat it. Easy. However, over a period of time, something happened, and people began noticing a peculiar change in these moths. The change was these moths began to change color. So this is a peppered moth. So they were both lighter, and this is the darker. Now, the reason for this is natural selection, and we won't go into this, but it's just science. It's pretty cool. If you want to check it out, it's actually really awesome. But we can view this as a moth's adapting to a situation to survive. So whenever this moth landed on a really dark tree, the birds didn't really find it that easy. It was a little bit more difficult for a bird to find it. So they didn't get ate as often as the lighter colored ones. So as these moths adapted to survive, so should your organization. So in Yoda's case, fear is the way to the dark side. But in this case, let's look at fear also being the way to the dark side, but the dark side being change. A lot of times whenever we try to change something, there is a fear. Fear is the way to the dark side. In this case, the dark side is change. For your organization to stay relevant, one thing it needs to do, it needs to adapt. Over a period of time, it needs to adapt. You may say, Vince, our organization is doing great right now. That's awesome. During the pandemic, some organizations stepped up and knocked it out of the park, continued having meetings virtually. They found ways using the technology that they had to keep going. They may not have had a plan, but they had to adapt. I think COVID actually really knocked the wind out of us. It really did. I mean, you look at 2 years ago, things were just totally different. Totally different. And all of us had to adapt. So some organizations took the technology. Technology is one thing that continues to adapt. It's a constant adapting. So they use the technology out there, but you may be still wondering, why is this important? Why are you talking about moths? Well, talking about moths because look at it this way. Your organization is a living thing, just like a moth. And your organization needs to be able to adapt to the things that come along. Take, for instance, this camera right here. Let's talk about technology just for a little bit longer. Why does your organization need to adapt? Well, your organization needs to adapt to stay fresh. It needs to stay fresh. So we all know that times change. About 30 years ago, I was taking pictures with a camera that looked like this. It's a 35 millimeter camera. You can still find film and you can still find people that actually develop it, but it's a little bit harder now than it was. Cameras like this were readily available. They're still available, but you have to look for them. It's a niche market that you really have to look for. But there was nothing spectacular about these cameras, but during that time they were state of the art. Now, all of us pretty much has one of these, a cell phone. And I can pretty much, if I wanted to, downloading different apps and stuff, I could probably make a motion picture using this cell phone. Rather, not anybody would come and see it. That's a different story, but you get the point. Technology has come from this camera to this right here. Technology. It wasn't overnight, but over a period of time, I had to choose to learn and adapt. The same way with your organization. It has to want to adapt. It has to want to change. So over a period of time, I kept up with the technology. I wanted the latest piece of technology. I wanted to know how to use it. And we've come from the camera that you see on the screen to one of these right here. And technology is still going. It is still going to change. That is one constant that is always going to be changing. Your organization has to make the decision to try to forecast what may happen. Though it's entirely impossible for any one person to know exactly what is going to happen. But you should think about more than just the present situation. And that's what adapting is. That's one part of it. Think about more than just the present situation. So let's look at some ways to approach change, ways to approach adapting. There are many ways organizations can approach change. This is the main reason we are here at CCO. One thing to note that here at CCO, we do not take a cookie cutter approach to nonprofit organizations. Now, what works for one may not necessarily work for another, but we are here to help. This is what we do. It's our passion, and we are actually good at it. But as I said, we know that not all organizations are the same, and what works for one may not work for another. This is where you as leaders come in. We can only give you ideas, knowledge, the tools to help you take on change, to help your organizations adapt. But it is you as a leader. It is up to you to determine if you're going to use it and determine how you're going to implement it. But change is necessary and change can happen. Even though it's scary, it can happen. And for an organization to stay relevant, it has to happen. It does. So let's look at how much change are we talking about. One thing leaders need to do is determine how much change is needed. First of all, do you need to take a razor blade, a surgical approach? Are the changes that your organization needs small? Are they really small? Just keep in mind, though, that small changes do add up, and they can have large effects on your organization. But no matter what level of change that we're talking about, everything when it comes to change should be given a great deal of thought before acted on. Think about the future. Will this change or help the organization in the future? The organization will have to adapt. Is the issue that you're talking about important? What will happen down the road? You have to think about this stuff. So how much change? Do you need a razor blade? Is it small changes? Or do you need a little bit more, maybe a chainsaw? A little bit more changes, but changes are larger, but they're probably still more manageable. Or Does your organization do they need huge amounts of change, permanent change? Do you need a bulldozer? Maybe perhaps the mission of your organization needs to change because of the changes in the atmosphere it's in the world that it's in. So just think about it. This is something that your organization is going to have to determine. Exactly how much change do you need? One thing to help with this is to create a plan. While even with the plan, it could still be chaotic. I mean, things are going to happen that are going to be totally out of your control as leaders. But it's still advisable to have a plan. Your organization is the sum of many working parts, working cohesively. So here's some different plans to kind of think about. One is a strategic plan. This plan helps your organization utilize its resources. It can help guide the direction of your organization. A succession plan. Your organization should have a succession plan. Think about the future. Think about what's going to happen in the future. Who's going to be there to take it over if something should happen? And it should also have a financial plan. Think about the money that comes into the organization. Are you going to need to try to have more fundraisers? Think about it. Everything needs to have a plan. But also keep in mind that while it's good to have plans, it's important for an organization to actually go by it. It really is. I don't know how many times I've seen plans just go by the wayside. They would create a plan and nothing would come about it. So all that energy to create a plan was wasted. A plan is a roadmap. You have a goal that you want to get to. As in life, we often find other routes to our destinations, but a roadmap will still help your organization. So look at a plan as a roadmap. Another thing you should do is take inventory. Determine what you have and what you need to help bring about this change that you're looking for. What do you need to help implement this change plan that you may have? For one thing, take a long, hard look at your assets. But I want you to go beyond what is easily seen. Go beyond your land. Go beyond your buildings. Go beyond your equipment. Tap into one of the biggest assets that your organization has. Tap into your social capital. Social capital, this can be defined as the relationships your organization collectively has. So something could come up one day that your board has to mess with or that your organization has to deal with. And nobody on the board knows how to deal with it, or nobody in the organization knows how to deal with it. But everybody collectively may know somebody else that knows how to deal with the problem that you're facing. So when I was younger, there was a church that was having problems with their water well. Members were limited about what they knew about the particular well system that the church had. However, during a business meeting, there was a member stood up and she said that her grandson worked on wells. And if they wanted to, she would tell him to come and look at it. So while the board members and the church members had very limited access, there was somebody in that group, in that organization, that knew somebody that had knowledge of this. And that is the same way in your organizations. Now, no one person knows everything, but your organization always has more capital in it, more social capital in it than you think. So I implore you to use it, tap into it, It's a great resource. Now, this is why networking is so important, not just for nonprofit organizations, but in our daily lives as individuals, because you never know who you're going to meet. And honestly, in essence, while you may never meet everybody that that person knows, that is an avenue to the person that you do not know through them. So just something to think about. Think about your social capital. Think about it. We're going to do one more quiz here. This is the last quiz here, and this is a rather long one. You put water into a cup. It becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle. It becomes the bottle. You put water into a teapot. It becomes the teapot. Water can flow or it could crash. Be water, my friends. All right, I am going to, is there anybody that would like to take a stab at this one? Who do you think said this? You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friends. Be water, my friends. Is there anybody that would like to take a stab at that one? Who said this? This is another philosopher of our time. Mary, let me allow you to talk here. Mary. Hey, Mary.
Hi. Is it Bruce Lee?
It is Bruce Lee. Yes, ma'am. Good job. Good job. It is Bruce Lee. What on, Mary? What on? And hang loose. My contact information is going to be on the slide at the end. So you too we'll go into the prize vault to get you something as well. Thanks, Mary. Yeah, good job. It is Bruce Lee. So be water. Be water. So as we wrap up this presentation about adapting for success, the way I interpret be water is this. It simply means to be flexible. As leaders for your organizations to adapt successfully, you must choose to be flexible. The choice is from within. As a leader in your organization, this is an individual choice. In order for your organization to adapt, the leadership must be understanding. They must be willing to approach things with an open mind, considering the circumstances that the organization may find themselves in. Now, your organizations out there are doing some great things, and for many, the journey has just started. But at some point in time, your organization will be faced with some hard decisions. It will happen. Decisions where you would have to adapt. You will have to adapt, to change, to continue to do the great things that you're currently doing. Now, not choosing to be flexible regarding the needed change, not choosing to be flexible, but being rigid or even stubborn will not help. It won't. Everything changes. Everything adapts. When the time comes, and it will come, your organization can adapt as well. So that's pretty much it for this one. Let's just go ahead and kind of recap what we talked about. First of all, determine how much change your organization needs. How much does your organization need to adapt? Think about it. You have the razor blade. Is it small surgical cuts, small changes? Do you need larger changes? Perhaps a chainsaw, or in real extreme circumstances, do you need a bulldozer to change. Now, in this case, you know, jokingly, using a bulldozer will probably, it's probably a last resort. But say, for instance, you're wanting to change your mission because things have changed in the atmosphere in the world that you're in, that you're working in. Things have changed so much that you might have to change your mission, and you can very well do that. That's when the bulldozer would come in. But no matter what size the change, you really do, as leaders, need to take it into some deep consideration, some deep thought before you act. Before you do act, create a plan. Create a plan. Think about those different plans that we talked about. Now, a plan is kind of like a roadmap. It may not happen exactly to plan, but at least you have your eyes on a goal. And if you're going by your plan and the organization tends to kind of veer off into another direction, you can use the plan to kind of get it back online to the goal that you want to get to. So things change, things happen. That's life. That's life. Sometimes, especially if you're driving in Tulsa, I have to go different ways because there's traffic one way. You know, you have to change things, but I still get to my destination, and your organization can still get to its goal. You know, and if you create a plan will help only if you use it. Take inventory of your assets. Think about what all you have, not just what you can see. Think about your social capital. While you may not know how to do something, somebody in your organization or somebody on your board may know somebody who may know somebody that knows how to do it. So tap into your social capital. And I guarantee you that once you start thinking about it, and once people come together, once your organization comes together and starts discussing who they may know that may be able to do this, your network is a lot larger than you think. It really is. It really is. And in the end, adaptation takes flexibility. You have to be flexible when you're adapting. You have to be flexible. You have to want to adapt.